Hello, and welcome to another video in the Blade series. I'm John, and this is Scott. On this week's video, we're going to discuss something that seems to happen more and more, a cybersecurity breach.
Yes.
This one, however, is a little different in that it happened to a major law firm here in St. Louis.
Yes.
So let's dive in and discuss this cautionary tale. 'Twas the night before Wait, no, that's the wrong cautionary tale. So, Scott, what was the incident at the St. Louis law firm, and how did it impact the Presbyterian Healthcare Services?
Sure. Presbyterian Healthcare Services are the one of the members of the class in this class action suit that talks about mishandling of information. And what happened apparently at the law firm was between May 28th and May 29th this year, 24, an unauthorized person got access to the computer systems at the law firm. And what happened then was a data breach. And this breach compromised all the PII, the personally identifiable information, and the PHI, the private health information of over 300,000 individuals.
Holy mackerel, that's not a small one.
No, it's not. Unfortunately, that's a lot of individuals. And if you're looking about, the type of data that was actually, being pulled off by the bad guys, it's the tasty data. It's the very good data. The data you're going to get the most for, the medical data, financial information, all that fun stuff. So that kind of information, if it hasn't already, hasn't popped up on the dark web somewhere for sale. And that's something, it's a lot different than just a social security number, maybe.
Right.
Now, when you get all these pieces together with the financial, the medical, and everything, that makes that record really valuable.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, you hear about, people getting one or two pieces of information, but I mean, when they get the social security number, the date of birth, and the stuff that goes along with it, you can really easily make something out of it.
Sure, and there could be financial information in there. It all depends on what this hospital group actually stored in their medical records. Is that there or not? So, but all that information at this point seems to be is verified that it's been breached, and it's out there in the wild now for sale to other people and things like that. So,
yikes. So do we know what caused the breach?
Well, not yet. Basically, we know the basic reasons why it would happen, and it was also, detailed in the complaint where the law firm didn't have adequate security measures to protect the PII and the PHI on their systems, and they also did not detect the unauthorized access immediately. It took a while. We're not really sure, where that is, and that's not neither here nor there for today's discussion. But it wasn't done immediately, and that's one of the reasons that the plaintiffs are talking about, they spent months maybe, before they notified the actual people whose data was taken and breached. So that's a potential issue too. And if that's true, that's something that'll not shine very, kindly on the law firm.
Yeah, it'll be a really dark spot on the case.
It could be. So.
So, how did the St. Louis law firm and Presbyterian Healthcare Services respond to the breach when they found out?
Well, what happened was we know that it happened in late May, and the Presbyterian Healthcare Services were notified by the law firm in November of 2024. So it's a big length of time there. Generally, depending on how you interpret some of the regulations and best practices and such, nothing says that you can wait, 4 months, something like that. It has to be more immediate than that. Usually a matter of hours, a lot of times, than months. So, and that's a problem because these people whose data was taken, the 300,000 folks out there, that data could have been out there bouncing around on the web somewhere, and they didn't know about it. So they didn't know to watch their credit reports perhaps, or these sort of things to make sure that their data wasn't out there in the wild somewhere. And that's why if somebody is a victim, a company who's a caretaker of documents is a victim of a breach, that's why it's so important for them to let people know immediately. Yeah, everybody makes mistakes. I mean, that you still have to admit to it, but let them know as quick as you can so they can, put their shields up and be a little bit more, observant on what's going on in their lives primarily with their financials. That's where, again, this is all done by thieves, and that's what they're trying to do. So that would give them more chance to keep an eye on those things. That didn't happen in this case.
Yeah, so if you didn't have anything like dark web monitoring or anything like that, your data could be out there for
you wouldn't know.
Months or years.
Well, here's how you would know, is when you start seeing new things appearing on your credit report and new credit cards being issued to people that aren't you under your name, and that's when you would know. It's much better to take more, like you said, credit monitoring approach, so those things get stopped. It's a lot better than it used to be. I know sometimes even I'll make a normal purchase of my credit card and it won't go through because they think it's potential fraud. And we talked about AI, and that's something that AI is getting really focused at in that industry, is identifying fraud, and sometimes it's going to have false positives. And that's why I get something on my phone, say, did you just make this purchase? Yes, no. And you hit yes, then it lets it go through, type of deal.
Gotcha. So, all right, well, now we know how they responded.
Yes.
So what legal action has been taken in response to the breach?
Well, at this point, what we have, there are 3 members of a class in a class action suit in federal court, Eastern District, Missouri, that have filed complaints. It alleges negligence, which we kind of talked about, breach of implied contract, kind of more of a legally term, but the same idea. You're contracted to take care of that information and protect it. Breach of implied contract, as I mentioned, violations of state and federal laws. That'd be things like HIPAA and things like that, because it's health information that got loose. The plaintiffs are looking for damages, reimbursements, relief, punitive damages, and other remedies. So, it's just, who knows at this point? It's just getting filed, and so on. So we really don't know where this is going to go, how many members are going to be in this class. Is there only going to be 3? Is there going to be 300? We don't know. And that's what we're going to see as it progresses. This will probably not be a really fast-moving matter, because it's in federal court number 1 and multiple people in a class, and with a law firm being the defendant. Obviously they're very skilled. They know what they're doing. So it's it's not going to be a quick mover, but it's going to be something we're definitely going to be monitoring and see what happens. Could end up being more of a kind of a ground-breaking, precedent-setting case to a certain extent, because we're talking about a prestigious law firm that has a duty to take care of their clients' data, and at this point they failed. So, I can't think of too many big ones like this that have happened through the years that actually made their way through the courts, and just where's that number going to be in the end? As far as the damages, where's that going to fall?
Well, and what was going through my head was, as we're talking about it, I'm like, man, if they can get even a good portion of the 300,000, somebody might make an example out of them in the courts.
Yeah, could. I mean, anything can happen. Once you get into that world, is not my world, obviously, but I play around in that world sometimes, and yeah, you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. There's so many.
It's all conjecture at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows? I mean, there's not been any real discovery yet. Yeah. All of this is just one group pointing its finger at another group right now. But it'll go as it goes through the court. We'll have discovery. We'll find out really what happened, what dates these things did occur, why they occurred, who did it, da-da-da. All that should come out in the wash as we go.
Let the justice system do its job. So I guess the next question is, what security failures were highlighted in this complaint?
And the complaint is actually very good. If anyone's interested in that kind of thing, you can find it online. It's in the Eastern District of Missouri. But the list of items within the complaint is really a good list. If you're looking at trying to up your own cybersecurity defenses and protect yourself from this sort of an event. So it's a really well-written list of stuff. And it includes things like inadequate data security systems, failure to encrypt sensitive information, lack of timely detection and response, which that's one thing I think is a big one in my mind. Insufficient training on employees on data security practices. All these different sorts of things are within the complaint. And like I said, it does make a nice list of things that you want to look at a law firm or really any business to make sure that you're at least addressing through policy, or at least knowing that there's potential issue. You can't fix things unless you know there's a problem, right? Yeah. So if you kind of use this as a list, hey, it might be able to, maybe something good can come out of this bad situation.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's kind of like a list of, don't miss these things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these are good things. Yeah, good things to follow up on.
So what impact has this breach had on the victims?
Right. Well, now the victims that are out there, 300,000 records. Now all these people are going to be at a much heightened risk of identity theft. Where somebody, as I mentioned before, getting a credit card under their name, these sort of things. They can also, use for various other activities. The bad guys can, not only open new credit card accounts, but they can file a false tax return and potentially get a tax refund. Medical services under these people's identities, since we know there's all the health information in there too. Maybe if somebody's getting, for example, a prescription narcotic, and this person could steal their identity and get that prescription filled for themselves. I mean, there's all kinds of things the bad guys, trust me, they got plenty of ideas on what to do with this kind of stuff. And as I mentioned, this data is the tasty data. This is a really tells you everything about that person, everything you'd want to do to be able to get a new credit card, a new account, prescriptions, anything like that. And that's why it's dangerous. And the people that are impacted need to definitely start monitoring their credit and all their financial stuff.
Yeah, these breaches are the worst nightmare for me because I have 2 young kids.
Oh, yeah.
And so I always think about, well, my kids aren't trying to file tax returns, so how many years would it take if I didn't have monitoring in place?
Yeah, that's true.
How many years would it take for me to figure out, oh, crap, they've had them for how many years?
Right, and also your kids are so young. Something like this happens, it's hard to get rid of it. It can take years and years and years to be able to clean your credit up or your identity up or whatever. And if you're a kid, that's a tough way to get started out in life, right? And you get 18 and then you find out you got all this stuff.
Yeah, I can't get a loan to go to school because some guy took my ID.
Exactly, that kind of stuff. And and a lot of people, you're right, don't follow what's going on with their kids. So that might be a good thing for other people to do as well.
Yep. So to follow on to that, what preventative measures could have been taken to avoid the breach?
Right. And there's a lot of things, a lot of different ways that you can go about this, but there are all kinds of industry standard pieces of software that are used everywhere that help, identify these types of problems and avoid a breach like this. Basic stuff by implementing standard security measures. There's all kinds of different, models and frameworks that we can take on, and all the work's done for you as far as figuring out here's all the things you need to do and what order to do them in, and just follow a framework. And that really helps you having a standard security measure. Security audits is something important because our environments aren't static; they're constantly changing. So whenever we basically look at security audits as being an ongoing process. It never really ends.
Never stops.
You always are looking at what you're doing, and you really, anytime you implement any type of technology in your company or your firm or your house, really, you need first thing that gets in your mind should be security.
Yeah.
Even if you're putting in a printer or a webcam or a Ring doorbell, I don't care. One thing you need to think about is the security of this. Is there a password on this thing? Did I change it from the default? All these different sort of things. And then that comes out in security audits. Encryption of sensitive data, that's also something really important. HIPAA, for example, says that you have to have, your data's got to be encrypted at rest and in motion when it's going somewhere else. So that's some things that you have to do. And it's done with industry standard tools, and it's not witchcraft, and something we all do every day. Multi-factor authentication should go without mention at this time, but you basically don't want to have just one thing like a password. You want to have, pick 2 of the following. Something you have, like a dongle or something like that. Something you are, like a fingerprint, iris or something like that. Or something like a password. Yep. Pick 2 and you're fine. And it's going to be really tough for somebody to beat that. The only time, you really get in trouble with multi-factor authentication is by having lost your device or lose your dongle. And if that's the worst thing that can happen, then you're pretty secure as far as your data goes. And also employee training on data security best practices. And that's something that I do a lot, especially this time of year. A lot of people, a lot of law firms are trying to get all their continuing legal education done for the year, and I do a lot of seminars and discussions, and a lot of them revolve around cybersecurity. That's usually 80% of the content. And that's something, you don't have somebody doing that internally, you could definitely reach out to someone like us. There's other firms out there that do the same thing. But you can't give your folks enough education because when it hits the fan, don't be standing there pointing your fingers at somebody if they haven't received any education from you on what the right things are to do. It's your fault as a manager or business owner to do that side of thing. But that's some of just the basics that you need to have in place, on a day-to-day basis to make sure that this doesn't happen to you.
Yep. So I guess one of the final questions is, so there's a lot of information in this technical brief. What are the conclusions we got out of that? Right.
Well, I think probably the biggest conclusion is that how important it is to have robust data security measures to protect your information. You just have to have them. You can't just say, okay, how are we going to store this data? Oh, we're going to put it on a big external drive and put it on the network or something like that. You got to have a plan and a way to handle this information, how to keep it protected, how to audit access, see who's touching it, all these sort of things that are pretty much required by things like HIPAA and so on and so forth. Really, that's the core reason of this whole matter, is that the PII, the PHI was mishandled by the law firm. That's the key key tenet of this. So if you can make sure that you take care of that, your data, your customers' data, anything that's confidential, I mean, that's really going to go a long way for you to avoid getting in this situation yourself.
Yeah, be able to prove that when they gave you the information, they actually cared. So
Exactly.
well, I suppose in this case, a visit from 3 ghosts might have been better.
Yeah, just make sure you're not visited by the ghost of Christmas future, and make sure you have good data security in place.
Exactly. Scott, thanks again for your expertise. Thanks to all of you for watching. This is Jon and Scott from Blade. Take it easy.